Chapter 20 Part 2 of 2. Gary recalls, I was actually standing on the outside of the city, on a lush green carpet of grass on a hill. I started walking up the hill, toward the city. 13. As one of Drive Rawlings's NDE patients described, the whole area was lit with this brilliant, beautiful light. I have never seen anything like it before. I found myself on a rolling green meadow that was slightly uphill. I saw my brother and he was alive, and yet I remember when he had died. 14. Betty Malls found herself walking up to the city wall. I was walking up a beautiful green hill. It was steep, but my leg motion was effortless and a deep ecstasy flooded my body. I looked down. I seemed to be barefoot, but the complete outer shape of my body was a blur and colorless. Yet I was walking on grass, the most vivid shade of green the first had ever seen. Each blade was perhaps 1 inch long, the texture like fine velvet, every blade was alive and moving. All around me was a magnificent deep blue sky, unobscured by clouds. I was arriving at where I had always dreamed of being. The wall to my right was higher now and made of many-colored, multi-tiered stones. A light from the other side of the wall shone through a long row of amber-colored gems several feet above my head. 15 The city wall and gates. Imagine coming up to the Great Wall and the city gates. Great excitement and anticipation well up from deep within you as you prepare to enter the city of God. Brad Barrows, who was blind from birth, describes details he doubtfully would have made up since he is blind. Listen to how they coincide with Scripture and other people's descriptions. As Brad approached the end of the dark tunnel, he was aware of an immense field stretching before him for what seemed like miles. As he took in this scene, he says, I knew that somehow I could sense and literally see everything that was around me. He noticed, for example, huge palm trees, with enormous leaves, and very tall grass as well. As I was walking up this field, up the hill to the city, it seemed as if I was so exhilarated and so unbelievably renewed that I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay forever where I was. It seemed like everything, even the grass I had been stepping on, seemed to soak in that light. It seemed like the light could actually penetrate through everything that was there, even the leaves on the trees. There was no shade, there was no need for shade. The light was actually all-encompassing. Yet I wondered how I could know that because I had never seen before that point. At first I was taken aback by it, by sight. I felt like I wouldn't understand it had it happened on Earth. But where I was able to accept it almost immediately. As Brad got closer to the city, backlit with the light of God, as Revelation 21 verse 23 says, he heard music and thousands of voices singing in a language I had never understood, or maybe many, many languages. The music I had heard was nothing like anything I have ever experienced on Earth. Brad never describes it as a city or a wall or gate, maybe because he started too close to see it as a city wall, yet his description coincides with Revelation's description and what other NDErs say. As I was going up the hill, I came to a large stone structure. I could tell that it was stone without even touching it. I could tell with some sort of sight that I had at that time, some sort of vision, I knew. They were almost like gemstones, the wall's foundation. They seemed to literally shine with their own particular light. Yet the light itself was actually penetrating right through the stones. It seemed that the stone was actually heightening that light, the light that was already there, to the point where I was almost afraid to touch those stones. I thought that they might be fiery hot. In another sense, I was very curious about them. The structure I was going into was a large tubular structure. I would say that at first the tube seemed to be at least 100 feet in diameter, with the top of the tube being well over 100 feet above my head, a gateway arch. Right up to the tube, there were palm trees and grass, and again this large field that actually existed all the way up to the entrance of this tube. 16 What's amazing to me is that Brad, still blind today, vividly describes walking up the hilly meadows of paradise, up to the gemstone foundation of the city wall, and into the archway of the city gate, yet he doesn't seem to even know what he's describing to researcher Ken Ring. He's describing this, the city, shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel. The foundations of the city walls were decorated with every kind of precious stone. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl, Revelation 21 verses 11 and 19, 21. Several NDErs in Jeff Long's study said similar things. There was such beauty, beautiful beyond expression. There was also a bright city or something like a city in the distance. Another noticed the same wall. As far as the eye could see to my left was a beautiful landscape of tulips of every color imaginable. To my right was a wall of a beautiful blue that matched the sky. 17 Through the arched gates. Remember the airline pilot, Captain Dale Black, who came flying in with angels toward the city's southeast side. Listen as he describes getting ready to enter the gates of the city. The wall to the city was not a single wall but rather a series of walls layered next to each other. The wall was made of 3 outer layers, 3 inner layers, and 1 higher wall in the center. At its tallest point the wall was a couple hundred feet. And surprisingly, it was as thick as it was tall. Revelation 21 says 216 feet thick. The wall was massive and stretched out to my left and right as far as I could see in both directions. The outer wall was greenish in color with a hint of blue and a hint of black mingled within it. It was made entirely of translucent stones. Large multicolored stones were built into the base of the wall in layered rows. Revelation 21 says there are 12 foundation stones. A powerful light permeated the wall, and you could see all the colors of the rainbow in it. Strangely, whenever I moved, the colors moved ever so slightly as if sensing my movement and making an adjustment. The 2 angels that had escorted me there were still with me, moving me along. I was eye level with the base of the wall now and no longer hovering above it, but standing in front of an impressive opening. It was an archway that seemed to be approximately 40 feet high and 30 to 35 feet wide. A tall, majestic angelic being stood to the right side of the gate. The entrance, or gateway, was opalescent in color, as if it had been made of pearls that had been liquefied, and then solidified onto the wall. The entrance was completely composed of this mesmerizing substance that also coated the entire inside of the opening as far as I could see. The ornamentation around the entrance included phenomenal detail. It was the most astounding sight I had ever seen. As I basked in the beauty that adorned the gateway, I noticed large gold letters emblazoned above the opening. They seemed to quiver with life. The single line of letters formed an arch over the entrance. I didn't recognize the letters but knew the words were as important as any words could be. I was filled with excited anticipation of entering that beautiful gate. I was immersed in music, in light, and in love. Vibrant life permeated everything. All these weren't just around me, they were inside me. And it was wonderful, more wonderful than anything I had ever experienced. It felt as if I belonged there. I didn't want to leave. Ever. It was as if this was the place I had been searching all my life to find, and now I'd found it. 18 Imagine an excitement that trumps your best Christmas morning memory as you approach the city gate. Though different people estimated different dimensions of the gate, their descriptions correlate. Scripture never explains that light shines out of everything, including the wall, but it makes sense if God's glory/light shines through everything. It never explains what pearly gates look like, so we picture ornate wrought iron-style gates decorated with pearls. Yet NDRs consistently give us the picture of something far more mesmerizing and accurate to Revelation. A wall of gorgeous backlit stone, sitting on 12 foundations made of various gemstones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth ruby, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th turquoise, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst, each gate made of a single pearl. Revelation 21 verses 19 to 20. Pearlescent gates. Betty Malls recalls the amazing feelings of homecoming as she approached the city. My emotion was a combination of feelings: youth, serenity, fulfillment, health, awareness, tranquility. I was arriving at where I had always dreamed of being. The wall to my right was higher now and made of many-colored, multi-tiered stones. A light from the other side of the wall shone through a long row of amber-colored gems several feet above my head. Topaz, I thought to myself. The November birthstone. I remembered this from working in Edwards Jewelry. 19 Betty feels the same anticipation of home, sees the same light shining out of the stones, and notices topaz, the 9th foundation stone of the New Jerusalem, several feet above her head. If each layer of gemstones were a foot in thickness, topaz would be about 3 feet above her head. As Betty approached a futuristic, pearlescent gate unlike any entrance you've imagined, she heard music and singing. I not only heard the singing and felt the singing, but I joined the singing. I have always had a girl's body, but a low boy's voice. Suddenly I realized I was singing the way I had always wanted to, in high, clear, and sweet tones. The voices not only burst forth in more than 4 parts, but they were in different languages. I was awed by the richness and perfect blending of the words, and I could understand them. I do not know why this was possible except that I was part of a universal experience. While the angel and I walked together, I sensed we could go wherever we willed ourselves to go and be there instantly. Communication between us was through the projection of thoughts. The angel stepped forward and put the palm of his hand upon a gate which I had not noticed before. About 12 feet high, the gate was a solid sheet of pearl, with no handles and some lovely scroll work at the top of its Gothic structure. The pearl was translucent so that I could almost, but not quite, see inside. The atmosphere inside was somehow filtered through. My feeling was of ecstatic joy and anticipation at the thought of going inside. When the angel stepped forward, pressing his palm on the gate, an opening appeared in the center of the pearl panel and slowly widened and deepened as though the translucent material was dissolving. Inside I saw what appeared to be a street of golden color with an overlay of glass or water. The yellow light that appeared was dazzling. There's no way to describe it. 20 The angel asked her if she wanted to go inside. Though she did with all her being, she heard the voice of her Father, praying for her to live. She asked if she should check on him, and the gates slowly melted into one sheet of pearl again and we began walking back down the same beautiful hill. To me, the mismatched dimensional estimates lend validation to their testimony. It indicates no collusion, they aren't just copying the same story. They seem to be giving different angles, estimates, and perspectives like the various accounts of Jesus' resurrection. My Harvard-trained lawyer friend told me slight discrepancies of the same story hold more weight in a court of law. It indicates people telling the truth from their slightly different perspectives. From these NDE witnesses in Scripture, we start to get a picture of this massive wall with a foundation layered with 12 gemstones, 1,400 miles long, approximately 200 feet high, and 216 feet thick, and 12 translucent gates made of pearlescent material you can pass through to enter the majestic city of God. But why a wall in heaven? And how is the city 1,400 miles high if the wall is only 200 feet high? These questions plagued me, and I can only guess at the answers. Revelation tells us its gates will never be closed, Revelation 21 verse 25 NLT, so the wall must be more for decoration than for protection. And the 1,400-mile high sides are apparently made of the same transparent gold that you can see, yet also see through. The city was pure gold, as clear as glass, Revelation 21 verse 18 NLT. The gates are there for welcoming in rather than keeping out. Don Piper explains the pearlescent gates like this: as we came closer to the gate, the music increased. Looming just over the heads of my reception committee stood an awesome gate interrupting a wall that faded out of sight in both directions. It struck me that the actual entrance was small in comparison to the massive gate itself. Maybe that explains varied dimensions, some describing the whole gate, others the entrance. I stared, but I couldn't see the end of the walls in either direction. As I gazed upward, I couldn't see the top either. One thing did surprise me: on earth, whenever I thought of heaven, I anticipated that one day I'd see a gate made of pearls, because the Bible refers to the gates of pearl. The gate wasn't made of pearls, but was pearlescent, perhaps iridescent may be more descriptive. To me, it looked as if someone had spread pearl icing on a cake. The gate glowed and shimmered. I paused and stared at the glorious hues and shimmering shades. The luminescence dazzled me. 21 Clearly this is an otherworldly entrance into your most exciting, exhilarating experience ever. Imagine the thrill as your new senses come alive with sights, smells, colors, and sounds of music and light, all alive with love, filling your soul with ecstasy as you pass through the great hallway of pearlescent material, through the wall, and into the glorious city of God.